Good morning and welcome to Set to Love. Are you in the midst of transformational change? Whether you're moving into change, you're coming out of something, you're starting something new. That is what we are talking about today with licensed psychologist Zia Sichi. She has a passion for helping others break through their barriers to find more freedom. You guys are going to love her. I can't wait for you to meet her. So thank you for being here and let's go.
My name is Eva Payne. Welcome to The Flow Life, where we define love as live open, value everything. On this podcast, you are dialed in and set to love. Let's go for a ride.
Good morning, Zia.
Hello, good morning, Eva.
Hi, welcome to Set to Love. I'm so excited that you are here today. Thank you so much for wanting to come on and share your gifts with the world. I'm so honored to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so why don't we just dive right in? I want people to get to know you before we dive into these elements of transformational change. Let people know a little bit about you, your background, and just why you have a passion for this work.
Sure. So I am a psychologist and I am a therapist in one of my roles. And then over the last year and a half or so, I have delved into life coaching. Specifically, I'm a whole life coach, meaning we work with lots of different things, but we focus on people who are wanting to make a change in their life. And so I support people through the change process, because even if changes look different for different people, the process itself has some key elements that are always pretty much the same, because we're all human. So and so I just really love helping people break through those barriers that in the past have held them back from doing the things they want to do, or changing something in the way that they live their life. And it's beautiful to see people move through that when they thought that maybe they couldn't, or they've tried and they feel like they failed. So I really love doing that work. And what's unique about what I do is we focus on the relationship with yourself. So the inner work is what is needed to make the outer changes. And so we really work on building the relationship with self. And that's sort of the mix of my therapy background with coaching that I bring to that process.
And so before we dive into some of these key elements, like what brought you to this? Why do you have a passion for this work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have gone through things in my own life that I've needed support and didn't know how to find it, or the things that I reached out to. For example, I have some health conditions that are sort of systemic and don't have an easy name or an easy, there's no pill that cures them. And so I've had to find ways to support myself. And so in doing that, I've discovered all sorts of healing modalities that are really amazing. And so I just feel like I want other people to have access and know about these things and know that they're not out there or woo-woo. They're things that really, really help you. So in terms of nutrition, foods that are inflammatory and how much that affects everything, our mental health as well as our physical health. And that's just a few examples. So in trying to heal my body, I have actually noticed that I have been on this healing journey probably for the last 10 years of also healing my mind and my emotions and my spirit, when I didn't even know that I needed that. So I just want other people to experience that if they're looking for that in their life, and have support, because you need good support.
I love that. All right. Yay. Okay. So let's dive into some of these key elements. What's the first one that you want to bring up? And let's start learning from Zia.
All right. Thank you, Eva. And first, what I want to say is, so we think about change all the time. All the magazines say, 30 days to a better you, or do this one thing and your life will change. And those things are sometimes true. But the change itself, it's how we go about the change that determines whether it's going to be just a short-term thing, and then we'll kind of fall back into old patterns, or whether it's going to be transformative change, like change on that deeper level. So transformative change is change that sticks, like it lasts. It might seem slower in the process because you're doing deeper change, right? So, but it sticks.
Okay, wait. So before you move on from that, what Like, what makes it hard for us to change? So what, like when we
Mm.
change little things like, okay, for the next week I'm running every
Mhm.
day, but then I don't stick with it. You know,
Yeah.
I can't stick with the things that I know are good for me and the things that I know I should be doing. I might be super motivated today to
Yep.
do it, but then like in a week or two, like life comes back in, laundry piles back up, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not sticking with that thing. So
Yeah.
what keeps us from even stepping into that transformational change and like wholeheartedly accepting it as our own?
Uh-huh. Thank you for asking that question because that's really key. And it's, each person in their situation is unique. And the thing that is kind of goes across the board is that our system, which means all of us, body, mind, spirit, wants homeostasis, meaning it's security, like knowing what to expect, right? So
Mhm.
even so, if we've been doing something for a long time, years and years, maybe our whole life, we might think, oh, I just want to change this and I'll feel better. And yeah, we will when we get there. But the process, if it happens too quickly, our system kind of recoils or lets us know, hey, that's too much all at once. And so sometimes we have too big of an expectation for how quickly we can change. So setting in those small supports along the way, taking small steps to support the change so that our system doesn't overreact and
Mm.
pull us back to baseline. So that's just a really general way. And for
Okay.
each person, we can think about what that means and what that looks like. But it actually, our system will go into fight flight mode if we make too big of a change
Mm.
um, against, like if we're not ready. So
Sure.
that's,
And then you just like pull back to doing what you were normally doing because all of a
yeah,
sudden I think like, oh, I'm going to run a marathon in a month. And
yep.
so it's too much, right? Like to jump too much. That's what you're saying.
Yep, it can
Okay.
be too much. And then all the other things come into place. Then we kind of beat ourselves up for not being able to do
Mm.
this thing we said we wanted to do. Or we say, oh,
Sure.
see, I always have these big plans and then I never do them. And now our inner critic is really on us. And so
Mm.
then, the next time we think about even taking a small step, we're like, oh, no, can't do
We're going to
that.
fail
It
again.
happened last time.
What's the
Yeah.
point?
What's the point? Yep. Yeah. And so those are the sort of emotional pieces of it that really need support when taking on a change that we've wanted or tried before.
Hmm.
That's the part that sometimes we really have to work. That's that inner relationship that I talk about with ourselves to support ourselves through big things. Um,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
So small. So a key element is what I'm writing down,
Ah,
small changes. So maybe you have a big goal, but you're
uh-huh.
taking baby steps to get there and you're allowing yourself that grace for it to be
Uh-huh.
a slow, steady, like you're the tortoise in that race of
Yeah.
that transformational change, right? You're not trying to like speed off and get it done tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Okay.
the way I put it is think big and start small.
Okay. I'm gonna write that
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, think big, start small. And sometimes life hits us with a big change and we don't have anything we can do about it. And then we just gotta catch up, right? And sometimes that happens, and then that's when it's good to have support for that too, or a process to support you. But if you, ideally you think big and then you just start with the first step. Yeah,
Mhm. Perfect. Okay. Okay. Keep going. Sorry. So
yeah, no, that's
more
okay.
more keys to transformational change.
Yeah. Okay. So there's actually three. So that's just kind of the general thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't
Thank
bite
you.
off more than you can chew. The other general thing is, and I know we don't have a whole lot of time to go too deep, but the other general thing that is crucial, like it is crucial, is self-kindness. So
Mm,
what I work on with my clients is being with yourself through the process with everything that means. So noticing what's going on for you with this view, this really like as if you were coaching or being a friend to someone else. What would you say if you saw them struggling with this change or this thing that's happened in their life? You
mhm,
wouldn't berate them. You wouldn't say, "Oh, just get over it." You would say, "Oh, what's going on? What's coming up for you? What are you feeling? It's going to be okay. You've done,
mhm.
something. This is hard, right?" So it's
Yeah.
learning to speak to yourself kindly. That is the one thing that I see that makes the difference, whether people are able to stick with the process or not.
Mhm. Right. So being
That's the
able
other
to say like, okay, so for me, one of the big things I've just started noticing is that when I start eating sugar, then I
thing.
just can't stop. And
Uh-huh.
especially at night, I don't know what it is about like 8 o'clock at night. I go like, oh, I'll just have one cookie. And then I'm eating like the entire box of cookies. And then like that night, I'm like, darn, I was doing so good all day. And then it got to be 8 o'clock at night. And then I was like, I've been so good all day. I deserve one cookie. And then one cookie turned to the whole box. And then it's like tomorrow's another day, like maybe I can get
Exactly.
there. So whether it's a
Yeah.
cookie or anything else in your life, right? Like you're saying that self-kindness, like, it's okay, Eva. I know this is hard for you. I know you're addicted to sugar. This is going to be a process of letting this thing go.
Yes.
But it's given you comfort your whole life. You're going to be okay without it. Like, so that kind of talk, right?
Yes.
Last night I did so good. I got to like 10 o'clock.
Okay.
And
there
then I
you
had
go.
gluten-free cookies. So I was like, okay, fine. I still ate cookies, but they were
There you go.
gluten-free, and I only had 2 instead of the whole box.
Okay.
So
So you see what you
yay,
just
that's
did?
a
Yeah,
win.
you just noticed your successes. You waited till 10, which was different than 8, and then you made a different choice. Perfect. That's exactly the kind of thing then you notice that.
Okay.
When you
But
celebrate.
I still ate the cookies.
Yeah, you still ate a cookie. It's okay. You celebrate that, because that is actually you sticking with your process.
Yes.
Right? And
Okay.
your system wasn't ready to give up cookies completely, or you would have.
It is not ready to
and that is actually okay. And then you honor. So the rock star level of this is you honor yourself for where you are in the process. Like, wow, my system knew I wasn't ready to give it up all the way, and I stuck with it and made a different choice.
Yeah.
So that's where you work. That's that space where change.
Okay, I'm gonna be texting you on my cookie progress. You can be my cheerleader. Like, good job. You did good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really.
All right. Sorry to spend so much time on that little kindness to yourself, but
it's a perfect example. And then you can learn things like, sugar is addictive. So of course my system won't just give it up. It's come to expect it, right? So just really understanding, and that's where a coach or somebody who's, helping you through this can remind you of those things. Like, of course that happened, right? Yeah.
And because the thing is, at the end of the day, it isn't just about the cookie at the end of the night. It's really about just my overall health and putting better foods into my body. And so I feel better and I'm less foggy and I can think more clearly and I can put my energy and focus on the things that do really matter to me, and I can invest, and those can get better because I'm healthier. So really it's just the cookie, but it's not just the cookie, because it's so much more. And so
exactly,
beautiful.
Eva.
Beautiful.
And your question at the beginning, like, why can't we make these changes? It's like these long-term things that we truly want. And then there's the short-term in the moment, right, where things are actually happening. And so it's bridging those that takes time. So yeah, it's a great example. Okay. All right.
Let's go back to the three keys. Thank you for setting us up with those two, that framework.
The framework. Because those are super important. They're the foundation. Nothing happens really without that. So just to watch our time. So I'm gonna just name the.
You're fine. We're just chatting. Let's go.
Okay. I get excited because I just love this. I love helping people through this process. So the first thing is taking full ownership and responsibility for your goal, what you want, and anything that you do or don't do. So responsibility isn't blame. It's not criticism. It's ownership, right? Like you just did. You said, I ate that cookie, right? I ate the cookie. That's ownership. You didn't say, oh, I was so tired, I had to have that cookie, or, oh, someone left them out and then I saw them. Nope, you said, I ate the cookie, right? So you own it. And it's so powerful. So, and our thoughts are also behaviors. So we own our thoughts about things, right? Even if they're negative thoughts about ourselves, we own them, say them out loud, journal them, work with what's really happening for us.
Yep.
So if you hear yourself putting your kind of responsibility on other people for your behaviors, that means that's the time to back up and work on that, because you're not taking full ownership. And maybe, that's the way you were raised, in our, culture, that's modeled a lot, like, but learning to take full ownership is key.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. I find it sometimes easier to take ownership of things that don't matter as much, or like I'll own the fact that maybe like about a cookie, because it's sort of just like a little thing. It's harder to take ownership over the bigger things in our lives, like how we're really showing up with people, how we're showing up with ourselves, like those bigger things that we have shame around, or whatever it might be. Changing ownership about how you might feel in a job, because you've worked so hard to get to this place and you've been with this company for however many years, or in this profession, or in this relationship. I've been in this relationship for how many years, and you don't want to own your part of it or whatever. So it's easy when for me at least, I'm thinking about the little things, but owning the bigger things is
Yeah.
a little bit more challenging. And I'm always in such awe of people who own stuff that are hard, like hearing someone really talk about addiction and just really owning their part of
Yeah.
it. It's just
Uh-huh.
like, oh my gosh, like, wow, that is so brave and courageous to own those big parts of us that are hard to
Yeah.
share
You're
versus
absolutely right.
like not eating the cookie, right? Like that's kind of, I mean, it's little, but those other things are, what do
Yeah.
you do? Like, how do you, maybe again, back to those baby steps, right? Like you just step
Mhm.
into it is maybe it's hard to even be aware of the things that you need to own.
Yeah, you're
Sorry, I'm
absolutely.
saying a lot. What are your thoughts
Yeah,
around the
no,
things
you're absolutely
are
right.
spewing out?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And then those bigger ones are harder to own sometimes, or they've been in the background for so long, we even forget that actually we play a role, right? So
Mm.
once again, this is we're having, and we'll get here, but having a process to support change. So when this comes up, it's really great to have someone who's kind of noticing that or helping you notice where you're not owning things. And that could be like a friend or a coach or a partner or somebody who you really trust, who you can take that feedback
Mhm.
non-defensively. Because I'll tell you, in my own process of starting my coaching business, something new for me, a lot of my own fears and self-doubt came up. And so I hired a business coach to help
Mm.
me. And without her, came to moments where I was kind of stuck and just going in circles. And so without her kind of having a process for us to explore that, I might still be stuck in those circles. So she was able to actually see where I wasn't owning my choices in
Oh,
life
that
and
makes
doing different
perfect
things.
sense. That makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. So, yeah, definitely having, especially when you have a goal, like if I were to
Mhm.
say, "Oh, my goal is to be able to run a marathon," or "My goal is to own a business," or "My goal is to get out of this job, but I
Yeah.
don't know where I want to go. It's just what I'm doing right now I'm not happy in, or I'm in this relationship and I don't know how to make it better, but I
Right.
know I need to change."
Right.
Right? So that's what you're saying, having someone there that can
Yeah.
say, "What's your part?" and help
Yeah.
you dissect it because you're so used to seeing your life through a certain lens, and you,
Hmm.
it's really, you don't know what you don't know, right? So
Exactly.
having someone
Yeah.
to come in and help with that and sort of point out those
Mhm.
in a loving way.
In a
I mean, I'm
loving
sure
way.
plenty
Yeah.
of people want to point
100%.
out the things you're not doing and the things you're not owning all
Yeah.
the time, but it's really hard to hear that when it's not coming from a place of love.
Exactly. So it has to be a supportive space or relationship in which you do that kind of work, 100%.
Mhm.
Otherwise, your own critic, once again, will shut it down, or your own defensiveness. So that's really key. So that's one of the reasons change can be slow at first, because you're actually working with these things that have been in place a long time, right? That don't just give up like that until they
Okay,
know,
can I back up on something? And I'm
yeah,
totally interrupting you. So I'm
sure,
looking at, like, even just so far, think big, start small, self-kindness, full ownership. But I almost want to back up for 1 second before we go to the next thing,
sure.
is just even realizing that you need change, like real,
Aha.
and then knowing what parts of your life need to
Yeah,
change. Sometimes I
right.
think we're just like, oh my gosh, something has to change, but we're just not even sure what that thing
Yes.
is. Like, is it my
Yeah.
job? Is it my relationship? Is it my health? Is it my,
Hmm.
so I know I'm taking you kind of back a little bit, but that's just what popped in as I'm looking, and I'm like, yeah, sure, own it. But what do I even need to
You're
own?
absolutely
Like,
right,
what part
Eva.
needs change? Like, 'cause
You're
I'm willing to
absolutely,
change, but can someone point out and tell me what's not working so good so I can
yeah,
so how do
yeah,
we know what parts of ourselves, like, we could level up and we can
yes,
improve when it's not so in our face, like we're not fighting in that relationship every day, or we're not like dreading to the pits of our stomach our job, but we know that that bigger change is like would help us
yes,
evolve.
yeah. Such a great
Sorry to
question,
bring you back
Eva.
a little bit, but that's just what popped
Yeah.
in.
No, you're absolutely right, and that would actually be a whole nother,
Ah!
conversation is the thing, and I say that, and that's why I'm laughing or smiling, because, yeah, so many people, so I offer free, sessions, free breakthrough sessions for people to explore whether coaching might help. A lot of people come in, like, knowing they want change, and then as we talk a little bit more, they realize they're really not sure, and sometimes they think, "Oh, I'm just not ready," but sometimes it means, "No, we don't really know what it is that we want," and so it makes sense not to jump and say, "Oh yeah, I need to, change my diet, or I need to leave my job." Like you're saying, it's actually a step back. And so some people are at that place, and coaching, or talking to a friend or a therapist can help with that as well.
Okay,
Journaling,
okay.
journaling, all of that.
So if
So you're absolutely right,
change is coming, you need it, find a
though.
Zia.
That's one way. It's not the only way, but yeah, find someone. It really helps to have someone. But journaling, at that point, that's a great time to just start journaling, just start noticing, do a little experiment throughout your day. Like, how do I start off in the morning? You know, when I get to work, or when I, working with my kids or whatever I do, when do I start to feel, when do I start to feel like my day doesn't feel good? And you just start to get some data and evidence. And then you can journal about that, think about past experiences that come up. There's a whole lot of work that's done before you jump, or before you take even that small step. And you're absolutely right. So sometimes just finding that out is huge. Like, oh, wait a minute. Before, it's a good thing I didn't jump in and make this change or leave my job yet, because I'm not sure what it is that I'm really wanting to change. Yeah. And then okay, we change jobs, but we're bringing all that with us. And so the new job starts to feel like the old job, right? And then we haven't done transformative change. We've just kind of, did a surface change or a Band-Aid.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry to take you back to that.
That's
that
okay.
Like what popped in, because I think sometimes we really know, like, oh my gosh, it's my job. And sometimes we just know it's something. And so I like that you kind of, so what I'm taking away from that is, even just whether it's in your phone or in a journal or something, like as those moments of discomfort come up, like, oh gosh, that conversation, or the way I felt there, the way that I feel walking into this space, or I'm dreading this part of my day a little bit, is like just noticing that, writing them down, and then being more open to diving into those pieces. To see, like, is it really the job, or is it a mindset around the job, or is it right? Things like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. That's really important. Yeah.
Okay. So I've got think big, start small, self-kindness, full ownership, goals at what you do and don't do.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so let's go to number 2.
Yeah, so number 2 is, let's say, you know, or you're pretty sure what it is you want to change. You've done that work, right? And you're owning it. And now, once you take a step, or start to think about unconditional commitment to yourself. Unconditional commitment to yourself.
This is so hard.
It's hard. You're absolutely right. It's so hard. That's why change is not something we just think about and do. But I'll tell you, it's worth it.
Say that one more time. Unconditional
commitment to yourself.
See, and that word, commitment.
I'm a mom and I have kids, right? And so I'm like, oh, but my kids, yes, and unconditional commitment to yourself. Because I'll tell you, if you do that, you are actually going to be able to show up for all the people and roles and expectations in your life. If they're aligned with who you truly are, you will show up better when you commit to yourself, number one. And I had to learn that over many years. So I get it. It's not easy.
So can you give me an example of what that looks like? What does unconditional commitment to yourself looks like in relation to any of these examples that we've talked about today?
Sure. Yeah. And it's different for every person, right? And we can't ever tell for someone else what that would be. But for ourselves, it means nothing is off the table. When you start to think about a change that you want, and you're like, well, I want to get here. And someone says, well, then, or you think, oh, but that means I have to change this thing about my life, right? Oh, I don't want to do that. Okay. Then you say you want this, but you're not willing to change that. So that's not to criticize. That's just to notice, okay, there's something out of alignment there. Those things don't mesh up. So I got to back up now. Number one, do I really want this? And that's where you go back to that place, right? Number 2, why am I unwilling to give up this? And maybe it's a relationship, or maybe it's a commitment you've made, or a role you've taken on, right? That's getting in the way of you doing this other thing. So for example, I recently left a job that I had at an agency, a group practice kind of therapy agency. And I loved it, and I loved the people there, and it was no longer aligned with what I wanted to do in the world. And so I had to make the hard decision to say goodbye to that. And so that's one of the reasons I hired a coach, because I was struggling with that. I had loyalty stuff came up, and all my stuff came up around that, and the fear of being on my own, right? Yeah. So I had to ask myself, okay, what are your values, right? What are you wanting in life? Yeah. You could stay there. No one's making you leave, right? But if you really truly say that you want this is, now that I've done some work around it, this is clearly going to have to change. And so I had take that leap.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's
Okay.
all, yeah, and
Okay.
this is where that self-kindness really comes in, because in this space we can get really hard
Oh,
on ourselves. Like, you say you want it, but then you don't do it, right? That's that stuff, that
yeah.
conversation internally.
So
It's
how did you like in the vision of what it is you do want, when that really started to get, was there like an excitement around it? Like what was the final, was there like uh this vision of what it could be to have your own practice and
it's
do your own thing? So even though you were fine, let's just say fine where you were, you had loyalties, it was working, but you just felt like there's this pull, there's this growth. Did you start dreaming about what it would be like to have your own thing, and it allowed for all the, you start stacking up the pros, and so that out starts to outweigh, and it's easier to move and make that change because you see the like light at the end of the tunnel? Or like what was it for you in that finally, besides having a coach like, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, here are strategic steps, was there
Mhm.
like an emotional thing that
Oh
happened?
yeah.
Or is there something by putting your awareness more on that, you start to
Yeah.
like gravitate more towards that and it's easier to let the other thing go?
Yeah, all of that, Eva. You're right on. You're right on. And so you're right. You want, so I think of it as, what's the pain and what's the gain. So like, what isn't working about
Mm,
my job? What, and where do I want to be? And so I actually, with my coach, we did a visualization of, what does your ideal day look like? Right?
mhm.
What do you want your day to look like? And just nothing off the table, just ideally, right? And then I created that, I had a vision of it, and then we worked with that actually.
And
And
that
it
vision
was,
was so strong because you weren't just like, my ideal day, I'm waking up at this time and going here.
yeah,
You were super intentional about
yes,
what that ideal day would look like, that it resonated so deeply with you
yep.
that it became the pull to manifest that essentially, right?
Yeah, it had to feel real. And so actually, so what you do is you get down into the details. You really paint a
Mm.
picture for yourself of what it's going to look like on the other side of this, whatever your change is that you want. So you really almost live it in your mind, to, like you say, to make it.
So
Um,
let me ask you this, like, I'm just going to pick someone out of my life that I know who is going to be stepping into a divorce, who has zero idea. I mean, been in this relationship since 16, in 50s now. So when you have zero idea about what your ideal day might even look like, because you've only
yeah,
known this one thing for so long,
yeah,
what would you recommend to
yeah,
someone like that, where that there's going to, whether you want it or not, it's going to come.
yeah,
And so how do you create that
yeah,
ideal picture? Do you, for someone, where might
right.
they start? Like sit in nature and just daydream, or look at other people's lives and kind of pull things out
Yeah,
that you feel drawn towards? Or,
yeah.
when like, I don't
Uh,
know, I guess
yeah.
that give you enough to work with as far
Oh
as,
yeah.
okay.
For sure. And my first instinct is, wow, what a scary place
It's
that might
totally,
be, right?
totally
Unknown.
scary.
Yeah, especially for, to be married that long and that such a young age. So this person might not really even know, right? What
Yeah,
an
no
ideal
idea. I don't think,
day.
if I said visualize your ideal day, I think she only sees her day like how it is right now,
Yeah.
that she can't even really, she doesn't,
Uh-huh.
she's, I don't even know myself. I know I
Right.
need to change, but I don't even know what an ideal day might look
Yeah.
like.
So with that person, we would start really small. You'd want to start really small, like,
Yeah.
okay, yep, in this moment, right? What do you lean towards? What do you pull away from in life?
Mhm.
What's something, even something small, maybe from childhood? What was something you just liked to do? Right? We can
Mhm.
often go back really, really far, and we think, oh, that's those are silly, childish things. But no, that's where our joy comes from. That's where we find ourselves, right? What were the things you liked to do? Who are the friends that you really liked to be around when you were, that kind of thing? And so you just
Mhm.
start really small, and you don't have a big expectation to visualize a day yet. That person wouldn't be there, right? So yeah, so you start with, what feels good to me, what supports me. And in
I
that
love
change,
it.
in that scary space, support might be really, really helpful, so we don't get lost in our
Yeah.
own sort of mind and fears, and you know should be this way or should be that way. Just how do you start to feel good in your body in the
Mhm.
moment? And that
And
actually,
I do think that having support in those big, huge transformational changes is really important because they are scary.
yeah,
So having someone, I know for me, having a therapist during that time, and
yeah,
even a therapist for my older kids at that time too, like,
mm,
because whether I wanted to see it or not, it's a big change for them. And
Yep.
so having someone that they can, even if they don't talk about the divorce, it was just like, your life is about to change in
Yeah.
a big way. And you need someone who is not me, who is not your dad, that you
Yeah.
can talk to, that's neutral. So
Yeah.
whatever comes up, you're going to be
Yeah.
able to do. So
For sure. What a beautiful gift you gave your kids. Someone to talk to who's not me. Like, you get your own space. Yeah,
yeah, you get your own
exactly.
space. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Number three.
Yeah. So that
What is
actually
it?
leads right into number three. And
Yay.
so, and I think I call it, you need a good container for your change process. So you need a container for it. Otherwise it's or you're shrinking. And so a good container. So this means having good support and a solid process to kind of set yourself up to move through it successfully. So a container can be lots of things. A container could be a journal. Maybe you just start by journaling how you're feeling. That's a container. You can put it away, come back to it. It holds that for you as you go about your life.
Okay.
A daily morning ritual can be a container. Every day I'm going to get up and either maybe I meditate, or maybe I just do some easy stretches. Maybe I write a little bit of, do my journal, just something. Maybe I just go out and look at the sun. It doesn't have to be anything big. We often think it has to be this huge thing, but no, something small you can commit to most days. Yeah. So a container can be a book. Maybe you read a book about someone who's been through something like you've been through, or it's a kind of a self-help book that has, hey, here's a way to do this change, right? So that can be a container. Something used as a guide. And then the other piece of that is the support. So it could be a person, right? Like we talked about, it could be a really good friend. It could be a therapist, a coach, something like that. It could be, if you have a faith community, right? It could be a pastor at your church, or someone in that world who you feel aligns with your values and can support you through it.
That's really great. For me, I that reminds me that when I was going through that really dark time in that transformation, I loved podcasts. I found a few that I really liked. It was like everyone they had on, I loved. And I would go on really long walks. I would drop the kids off at school, and I'd give myself, I would say, okay, I'm going to give myself an hour. But then sometimes I went for 2, and I just thought it's okay. Because when I started my day off with just some knowledge that I thought and even if I only plucked like one sentence out of the whole podcast that I could apply in my life, it was enough. I felt like I gave myself that. And then of course, I had a therapist for a while and really good family support, and stuff like that. So having those people to kind of help and just bounce things off of, that was really helpful. So I love that. Okay.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Eva. Yeah. And for some people, it's hard to think, oh, I should be able to do it all alone. So that's a belief that we work with a lot. I'm like that myself. I had to kind of just come to realize I can't do it all myself, and then learn how it helps to have support. Like, oh yeah, it's really nice to have that place to put it, or that person.
Yeah.
And it's
someone that you can be like legit real with.
Yeah. Yes.
Because you have to be going back to this ownership stuff, this full ownership. You have to, if you can't even be real with yourself, sometimes it's hard, but if you can find someone that you feel really like, it's like, I'm just going to say how no judgment. I need to just get it out. So that person can help you to reframe and look at it a different way, maybe, or say, gosh, you're being really hard on yourself, or whatever it might be. But someone that you really trust during that transformation, I think would be so important.
Yep, you're right. And the saying it out loud is so powerful. When we put something in words, and journaling, even if you get it out and put it in words, I believe there's like a magic that happens in that, and energy changes, and then it's real. Like, we make it real for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so it's really powerful to have that kind of container and process. Yeah.
Thank you, Zia. Oh my gosh, these were so good. Okay, so let's just to recap here.
Yeah.
Think big, start small. SelfKindness, full ownership, unconditional commitment to self. I wrote down pain versus gain. Focusing on the gain, and increasing that gain. So that way you're so excited, right? And then finally having a container for that change.
Yep. Yeah, so there's 5 things, I guess.
Well, the first 2 are more setup. The first
they
2.
Are.
Yeah, but no, fine. Yeah, it is 5 things. Really, I mean, I do think that all of that stuff is so important. Oh my gosh, Zia, you are a wealth of wisdom and knowledge, and just so kind. And like I sent you earlier, just you feel like this very soft place to land. And so if anyone out there is looking for a coach and therapist to help you through that change. You are someone who is just like this very open, loving, calm. And I just love that about your essence and how you show up in the world. So, soft place to land for
Oh,
anyone who really needs it out there.
thank you, Eva. That means so much to hear that. Yeah, thank you so much. And like I mentioned on my website, there's a link to schedule a free hour with me to
Let's
talk.
do that. Wait, tell me where can people reach you? And then any final thoughts before we head out. So if anyone's like, yes, I need to get
Yeah.
on a call with this lady and see if she's a good fit for me, how would they find you?
Yeah, it's healthcoachzia.com.
Health Coach Zia. And that's the website. And that's also your Instagram, right?
That's also my Instagram. Yep, I'm on Instagram at Health Coach Zia.
Health Coach Zia.
Yeah, and there's a link you can just schedule on my calendar. You don't even have to like talk to me first or anything. You can just schedule a Zoom or a video call. It's an hour just for you. And sometimes that hour is to find out, I don't know what I want, or I don't know if I'm ready. And that is valuable too. So it's just a time for you.
I love that. Zia, your energy is so soulful. That's what Kristen wanted to share that. Thank you so much for that. I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on this show today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. And I can't wait for this to get out into the world so people can hear this, because there's a lot of change that is happening in our world right now, whether we want it or not. There's a lot going on. And so how do we flow through that with more grace and more love? And so these tips that you've offered today, and it just at least gives people a framework for how we move through these transitions, whether they're ones that we want on our own or whether they're ones that just come to us without us really like wanting, but they're there and we need to deal with them. Otherwise they just drag us down.
Yeah,
So
we got to own them even though we didn't choose them.
Yes, own them even though we didn't choose them. That's beautiful. Thank you, Zia, so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for being here today and for sticking around and learning from Zia. I appreciate you. And I will see you back next Monday with another amazing guest. Stay set to love so you can flow for life. Thank you, Zia.
Thank you, Eva. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. I appreciate you too.